Good evening and welcome to tonight's City of Plymouth Common Council meeting, July 12th, 2011. Clerk will call the roll, please.
Lottie.
Here.
Sedlacek.
Here.
Jarvis. Here. Hanson.
Here.
Anderson.
Present.
Fowler.
Here.
Riley.
Here.
Fernsler.
Thank you. We'll stand for the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For the record, we'll state we have a quorum present for tonight's proceedings. Next item on the agenda is the acceptance of the minutes of the regular meeting held June 28th, 2011. I'd like to make a correction on those minutes before I ask for an approval. Page 2, about halfway down, I believe we have it marked to amend the minutes at there. It's typed as 1.5 million. That's a typo. It should be 1.25 million. So that'll correct the minutes. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes as corrected.
So moved, Alder Anderson.
Second, Alder Hanson.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next item, we have a agenda amendment to make. Item 12, I would ask the agenda be amended to delete item 12. And then on item 19, Charlie, we want to add where it says Public Works and Utility, June 14th and June 28th. We have two sets of minutes for the Public Works and Utility. And then the very next item, the Finance and Personnel, it says June 14. That should be June 28. Just a couple numeric changes there. Chair will entertain a motion to approve the agenda as indicated.
So moved, Alder Sedlacek.
Second, Alder Jarvis.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda stands amended. Thank you very much. Next item is the audience portion where we recognize people who have signed in and we ask them to identify themselves, come to the mic in front and address the council. This is where you get to talk and we get to listen. And the first one that signed up tonight is Karen Degner. Karen?
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Mayor, City Council members, my name is Karen Degner. I'm with the Family Resource Center of Sheboygan County, and I'm the coordinator for Military Families Connect. We've been in existence since March of 2003 and annually hold our picnic, our July meeting as a picnic in the city park. The city has been gracious enough since July of 2004 to waive the shelter fee, the lower shelter fees, and also they have provided aquatic passes to our members for use that day, that evening, for our meeting. I would like to ask that you once again consider the waiving of the fees and the possibility of providing pool passes to our members. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karen. Next person that signed up is David Nitsch. Did I get that correct? David, please.
Alderman, City Council, I'm Dave Nitsch. I live at 239 Egan Street. I'm here to urge you to approve the $400,000 for the railroad line to be constructed. This is one of the last key components. I realize Sheboygan County and City of Falls and the rest of them all have made their pledges, and the businesses affected. This will retain thousands of jobs. It'll bring in probably several hundred more. I know there's several firms waiting to see what happens here that may relocate along the line. It's going to be like a nice new highway going through the industrial parks for City of Falls and Plymouth. Right now, I live currently across from where the leg of the Y is going to be constructed, and I'm looking forward to it. Right now, it's an ugly brownfield with overgrowth and scraggly trees, and I think a new ballasted rail line would be a big improvement of what I got to look at right now in my front yard. And I hope you think about these jobs that are all there and approve this good asset to our city and county. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Next person is Bill Immig. Bill.
This is for the council, but it's more for the public, is that on August 18th, there's a band concert, and the Riverview Middle School Boosters were supposed to do the concessions, but they've informed me that they can't do it this year, so I'm looking for a group that would be interested in doing it. If the council's interested, the park board did it once. You've got some experience. But anyway, if anybody out there is interested, if they want to contact me or just give their name to the clerk's office, and I'll get in touch with them, and we'll take it from there. So it is August 18th, though.
August 18th.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item that signed up, Jerry Holub. Jerry?
Thank you, Mayor, Director Yurgis, common council members. It's a privilege for me to come in front of you to speak tonight. I'm speaking on item number 14 on your agenda. I'm urging you to support the item. It's needed in Sheboygan County. You're the last element to come through for our application for the T grant. As you know, we have to have a 20% match. Come on board, we'll have our $2 million match and then a $1 million T grant application that I'm sure will be looked upon favorably. We've worked many years on this. I'm the vice chair of the county board. I'm also the chairman of the East Wisconsin County Railroad Consortium. And I've been asked questions, the difference between the consortium's work and this Plymouth to Kohler 4-mile post line is the consortium does rehab work, not rebuild work. And this is a rebuild project. So this is why we have to have the local match for it at this huge project. Also, just like to mention to you that this is the first time that Sheboygan County has allocated dollars towards an economic development project like this in order to get it off the ground. And we're hoping that you support this, and I'd like to thank you ahead of time for your support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jerry. Next person that signed up is John Howell. John?
Mayor, Council, thank you for letting me come and speak this evening. I'm with Bemis Manufacturing Company. We're in Sheboygan Falls. We're a manufacturer, and I think you know that manufacturing in the Midwest, in Wisconsin, in Sheboygan County has been a rough go the last several years. We need all the help we can get. And the rail line, I think, would get us back, not just Bemis, but other companies, I think, are looking for this kind of support. It's going to keep the manufacturing base. Sheboygan County used to have a heck of a manufacturing base. And if we want to hang on to that, I think we have to do whatever we can to keep it. 10 years ago, when the Union Pacific serviced us, it would be 2 or 3 trains a week that would come from Plymouth, come from Sheboygan before it came from Plymouth. It didn't come from Plymouth. It came from Sheboygan. But we were serviced 10 years ago 2 to 3 times a week. Richardson was serviced. The co-op, it was great. And the reason we located where we located was for rail. We've got over 1,000 people working in Sheboygan County. Over 150 of those live in Plymouth. We want to stay here, we want to grow here, and any little bit of help we can get to make manufacturing less expensive in Sheboygan County so we can compete with foreign imports is going to be a big help. But appreciate your consideration and hope you do consider item 14 and support the reconstruction of the rail from Plymouth to Kohler. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Next person that signed up is Thomas Engel. Did I say that correct?
No, please. Well, I guess I'm the first bad guy. I'm here to object to the spending of the $400,000 by the city of Plymouth. I noted that the county board mentioned they contributed 100 and we're being asked to contribute 400. I don't see the relationship when the county would benefit more. I have three basic things that I object to. I say that it's a high-risk, low-reward project, and right now there's little chance of new jobs and new employers. There are none committed and none have showed an interest directly. CN and Union Pacific supplied Bemis in the past from the east, and I believe they cut off supporting them because it wasn't profitable to service the rail line. What makes WSOR and the state believe they can do it profitably when a much larger company was not able to. Secondly, the other interest is the balance here between Plymouth really can't afford it. It was discussed a couple weeks ago. The two possibilities are taking money from TIF districts. That money was originally intended to help companies that did come and locate in those TIFs. If we take money from there, it won't be available if someone does come on board. The other possibility is a loan, a low-cost loan, and the way that would be paid back by Plymouth is to raise property taxes. None of us want that. The last item I have here is I really question the state being in the railroad business. It's competing with private business. I think its original intent was valid because we believed when Wisconsin Central went broke that rail was going to be lost to the state. All the big companies bought up the profitable right-of-way, and what was left the state bought and gave a 50-year contract to WSOR to manage and operate for us. It really is unfair for a company not to have to pay capital costs to maintain rail lines to compete with businesses that do have to, and that's why I object to the state being in the railroad business. Thank you. I don't relish the decision you have to make. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Next person is Rick Iverson. Rick?
Good evening to you all. I'm with Tom on most of the issues here. I work for a manufacturer. I've worked for manufacturers all my life. I understand what you people are saying that are for the railroad, but rails that's history. That is history. Everything goes by truck. People don't have the time to wait for rail. It takes forever. All companies run just in time. It's all done by truck. Sorry. We're talking about Bemis. I think the biggest single contributor to this. We're getting two or three trains a week. We're going to spend all this money for 2 or 3 trains a week. A little outrageous, I think. Going back to how this is going to be funded. Again, it's going to fall on the taxpayers, which, this climate, our houses are already overvalued right now, as far as taxes are concerned. There's too many things to think about. Over the past 25 years, most of the new construction, residential construction in Plymouth, has been along this rail line. You can see that. Everything's new. Everybody's new. We were told, yeah, the line is still, you know, on paper, it's still working, but the chance of it ever starting up again are nil. Now, you've got, I don't know how many houses, we did a count at one time, how many houses are within 100, 150 feet of this railroad line. They're right out the front door, right out the front door. This whistle's going to be blowing, well, maybe just 3 times a week, but still, it's, you've got parks, you've got a grade school, a high school, a lot to consider here. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. I'm not sure about this next name. I think it's Glenn. Thank you. Whatever he said.
Mayor, Council, thank you. I just hope you consider the safety issues, the ballpark, the new subdivisions that are along that rail line, the safe, quiet crossings, and maybe ask, maybe ask everyone that lives within 200 feet of that rail line, how do you feel about this? Maybe in writing, maybe they say yes or no, and that's how you base your decision. You've got 50-50 chance of coming above, 50%, and they say yes, good, everybody's happy. But I mean, those are the people that are going to be most affected by that rail line, that whole new area, and the ballpark. So maybe you ask each resident, hey, how do you feel about this? In writing, yes or no. 50% yes, 50% no. I think it's worth a shot. I mean, you all can decide based on a dollar amount, but what's safety at the ballpark worth? The ball goes over the fence, the kids go running for it. I mean, so thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. Next person that signed up is Jerry Thompson. Jerry?
Mayor Pullman, City Council, members of the City Council. My name is Jerry Thompson. I'm the Railroad Services Coordinator for the City of Plymouth. And I just want to point out some things that, the big picture, at the end of the day, what we're talking about here are additional jobs and retaining jobs within our community. And when I refer to the community, I'm referring to Sheboygan County as a community. We're a part of this community. Sheboygan Falls is Kohler, City of Sheboygan. We're in this game together. And I can tell you that any number of cities that don't have rail service would jump at the chance to have rail service brought into their city to help develop, especially 2 industrial parks, Plymouth Industrial Park, Sheboygan Falls Industrial Park. The rail line runs right through it. They're prime candidates to bring industry into those industrial parks. And some people say, well, why would we spend money ahead of time? Well, why did we spend money ahead of time to develop an industrial park when we didn't have anybody that was standing in line waiting or wanting to be part of a new industrial park? We have to do some of these things ahead of time. As the Railroad Services Coordinator, I am aware of 4 industries that are very much interested in using rail service, brand new industries that would jump at the chance to participate in our industrial park, either in Falls or here. Now, I'm not at liberty to name who they are, but they've been in contact with me. They're very, very interested. And to show you how this can develop, since Wisconsin Southern has been active in our area for the last 3.5 or 4 years, do you realize that there's a quarry in Chilton, near Chilton in Calumet County, that's shipping quarried rock out of their county because of Wisconsin Southern? There was a 60,000-ton contract of quarry rock to move through our town, Galveston, Texas, to make a breakwater down there. That was before the first of the year. After the first of the year, the next amount was 50,000 tons. And if that goes well, it'll be a 5-year contract. Now, don't you think that means jobs in our area? That's raw materials that we're producing in our area that are going out. Plus, Manitowoc has a firm that's constructing wind generators. And some of the components for these wind generators are coming in by rail from Mexico. They're coming through Plymouth. They're being transloaded on County Trunk J, right by Road America. These are great big rings that are put into the towers. You can't transport those by truck. Some of them are 20 feet in diameter. They have to move by rail. If we didn't have the rail, it wouldn't be coming in here. So just two examples of industries that we're not even aware of that are helping our communities, and there'll be more. So I would encourage you to vote yes to support the rail. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Next person is Allison Smith. Allison?
Mayor Pullman and City Council members, thanks for this opportunity. I too want to talk about item number 14 in the sense of just as a business aspect of looking at things in the way the economy has been and is. I encourage you to take a good look at your voting time of where we are at as a economical standpoint with closing schools and making school cuts and all the decisions that are out there at this point in time, the lowering of prices for real estate, the decreases of jobs. Jerry Thomas had mentioned that there's possibility of for businesses that have an interest. Do we have any monetary commitments to them? Do we have any written commitments to them? Are we as a city willing to take a business calculated risk, I guess, in the sense of putting that out there? Or is that something that we need to take a look at further and maybe bring towards the members of the citizens of Plymouth and maybe bring it up towards a referendum for tax season? Maybe if we're looking at trying to raise taxes, that maybe let them decide if this is something that they are willing to do or not. So I encourage you guys as you make some decisions without written commitments, without monetary values. Again, I think $400 and or more if we want the quieting sections on there as well. That's a big chunk for Plymouth to choose, considering there's other businesses out there. They haven't really come up to the plate in my eyes to make that decision as well. So I encourage council members to take a look at that and to, as a business atmosphere in the economy that we're in today, is today the right time to be making this decision? Maybe in 10 years we can look at it again when businesses do turn around and things get a little bit more profitable. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Allison. Randy Myers signed up, but Mel, did he leave? He's in the restroom. We'll wait a second. Does anybody else want to sign up? We'll give you that chance to do so. We'll wait 1 second for Randy Meyer.
I thank you for the opportunity to address you tonight, Mayor, Council. As you know, I'm the mayor over in Sheboygan Falls, and when I went to high school, Sheboygan Falls and Plymouth were big rivals. And then I got to college, and you just loved running into someone from Plymouth because there's someone you knew. It was a friend then. And now that I've gotten into my political career as mayor, the chamber was good enough to get us all together to sign an agreement to cooperate and work together. And then Mayor Pullman and I and Mayor Ryan and the county actually have regular meetings, so we're kind of trying to keep everything on the same page. There was a time when that wasn't the case in Sheboygan County. Every city and every town was kind of in it for themselves. And I think the rail is a good opportunity to put together a project that requires cooperation from the state level, the local level, the county level, and the private sector. One thing Plymouth has done much better job over the years in Sheboygan Falls is working on your growth and assessed value. Plymouth right now is just a little under 700 people greater population than Sheboygan Falls, but you're 90 million greater in assessed value. 90 million. I think that's because Plymouth's done a better job in planning and looking into the future and looking at what could be, not what is today, but what could be if given the opportunity. I'm trying to do that in Sheboygan Falls, and we've done some good things since I've been there. But Plymouth quite frankly, ate our lunch for 20-plus years. Congratulations. So I think this is an opportunity that what I've learned now is that it's not about Sheboygan Falls and Plymouth. John Howell pointed out that 150-plus people at Bemis work here in Plymouth. We have Sargento employees working working here in Plymouth that live in Sheboygan Falls. So I think there's a lot of good things happening that can work together, and I think this project will benefit your TIF District 4 and 5, and it'll also benefit my Vision Park, and it'll benefit companies like Bemis that have employees working all across the county. So again, I encourage you to look forward and support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. We now get into the Common Council area where the council members participate and the public does not. I would ask the indulgence on the council if I, with no objection, would move number 7 up so we take care of that item quickly. We have a little bit of a time factor here, and I would like to move that ahead and take care of that for the Military Family Connect. Is there no objection to the slight alteration of the agenda? Okay, I appreciate that very much. We'll take item 7, approve request from Military Family Connect to waive the park rental fee for the lower shelter and provide up to 50 free passes to the Aquatic Center on July 25. Chair will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved, Alder Anderson.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Jarvis.
Yes.
Fowler.
Yes.
Lottie.
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Riley.
Yes.
Sedlacek.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Fernsler.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carried. Thank you, Karen. Okay, appreciate that interruption. Moving backwards, now we'll go back to item 5, ordinances, 5A. On all 3 ordinances, I will stipulate that it is on file in the clerk's office and also on the city website for those that want to look at it. Item 5A, an ordinance repealing and recreating Title 7, Chapter 2, Article A, fermented malt beverages and intoxicating liquor, City of Plymouth, Code of General Ordinances, number 9. This is the second presentation. I'll ask Attorney Huberty. Attorney Huberty, you got promoted tonight. Attorney Fieber and Clerk Huberty to play tag and summarize that for us, please. So.
I'll start us off if that's
Okay. While I'm really doing a bad job here, I do want to recognize in our audience tonight Mike Bauer. Mike, if you'll stand up. Mike is going to be taking a little time with us while Crystal is on maternity leave, hopefully after tonight, because we never know about Crystal. But we certainly appreciate all the work that she does for us, and we know that she'll have a good birth, and we welcome her back when the time comes. And Mike, thank you very much for coming and seeing how we function here a little bit. So with that, okay, now you're back on the hot seat.
All right. Thanks. I know that the council is pretty familiar with the ordinance at this point. We've been through this a few times. The ordinance that you have in your packet tonight doesn't show the strikeouts and the underlines, so you can't see in this ordinance exactly where the changes are, but this is identical to the draft ordinance that came before the Committee of the Whole at our meeting 2 weeks ago. The language that we've been focusing on is the reserved Class B language, which is on page 3 under paragraph BB. And so you recall that that has been changed to provide for 2 reserved Class B licenses that are going to be issued only to the large sports and entertainment complexes. We've also defined a full-service restaurant there. So we changed that from 3 reserved Class Bs to the 2 reserved Class Bs that only certain entities are eligible for. The other language that we're focusing on is on page 8 under paragraph E.
and that's the license quotas for the Class A retail intoxicating liquor, and so those are for the carryouts, so not the bars, but the other businesses selling intoxicating liquors. And this reads the same as your existing ordinance reads, in that there is a self-imposed quota of 4. The last time we got together, we didn't have a clear consensus on which way the council wanted to go. There was numbers as far as the appropriate quota number that were across the board. So that hasn't changed, but certainly if it's the council's desire to change that tonight, you can move to amend the ordinance and approve it. There is also a resolution that appears under 6A of the agenda that would repeal the existing policy of having or disqualifying your clubs and your lodges from applying for the Class B. So that's something that we've always talked about in connection with your ordinance, and that's a piece that we'll get to later in the agenda tonight.
Thank you, Attorney Faber. Clerk Huber, do you have anything to add to that?
I think Attorney Faber covered it. Of course, we welcome any questions the council has.
The chair will entertain a motion to approve as written.
So moved, Mayor.
We have a first and a second. Discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Alderman Lottie.
if it's voted on as approved, restricting the number to 4, I will vote against it. I don't feel I should be up here regulating business competition in the city of Plymouth. If you're going to go to 4 Class A, why not go to 3 restaurants in the city or 4 gas stations in the city? I don't want to get in a position where I regulate competition in any business. So I would vote against that, and I would like to make it unlimited.
Any other comments? Alderman Fowler.
I agree totally with Alderman Lottie on this, and I would vote no against limiting it to 4. It should be unlimited.
Any, Alderman Hanson?
If they want to change that, they can move to amend, strike the 4, make it unlimited, but you couldn't do that before it was made into a motion. You couldn't do it until it was made into a motion. Now you can do that if you wanted to amend it.
I would so do that. I would move to amend that and take the number 4 out, the last sentence out. Retail intoxicating license for minimum malt beverage license issued by the common council shall be limited to, and make that unlimited.
You're making that a motion to amend the motion. We need a second to that to amend the motion.
I second the motion.
We have a second to amend the motion. Discussing on amending the motion, correct? So we're now discussing amending it from 4 to unlimited. Who wants to discuss that?
Mr. Mayor?
Alderman Kozlacek.
I'm not in favor of unlimited. I'm not in favor of 4. We did have some discussion last meeting that 6 might be a number that gain approval by a majority of the council. If you increase it by 2, that gives 2 entities either that are currently in town doing business or entities from outside to come in and to sell liquor. I believe that at that point in time, if we have 2 that come in and either make the changes that they need to make structurally to their buildings, or a company from the outside coming in and building whatever it is that they need to, that we could look at that number. I'm just afraid that it could be a situation where we have every gas station selling liquor, and it becomes a very difficult, very difficult way for those entities to run their businesses without getting into the sale of liquor.
Alderperson Jarvis.
Thank you, Mayor. While I agree with the principles of Alder Lottie and Alder Fowler in terms of not regulating the competition, I have concerns about the safety parts of things that Alder Sedlacek had mentioned. I would be in favor of increasing to add one more and to see how that goes, to see is it going to be another corner gas station that takes that, or and how that would work. That would be my only comment. Thank you.
Alderman Lottie.
You know, I can appreciate their positions, but when I look at our ordinance the way it's written, they are already being restricted. If you let's take a gas station in the city of Plymouth, if they want to sell liquor, they're going to either have to clear an area out and put a wall there with a gate and a separate cash register, or build on. And if they want to put a building onto their building, if they have the room, then you're looking at probably $100,000 investment. If they think they can recoup just selling liquor $100,000 in investments over time, I don't object to that. I'm not controlling their business, you know. And I get back to the point. I don't want to control it. And you could say just get two grocery stores or whatever. You know, I just go back to that thing. You're getting to, and what's the difference between 4 and 6 or 5 or 7 or 8? You know what? I don't see what the number does when you have an ordinance that restricts it already. And also you're going to have competition, and your sales will determine it. You know, if people know they can't build a liquor store or put a liquor store in, if their sales ain't going to be, they're not going to invest the money. I'm sure the business people that do that really look at it seriously before they go that route.
Any other comment? Alderman Fowler.
Most of the gas stations and convenience stores already sell beer. You can get just as good a buzz on drinking beer as you can liquor. I don't think that we should be restricting. I move that we should strike that last sentence out in paragraph E. Not put unlimited, just take it out. Take the limitations out.
Any other comment? Clerk will call the roll on the amendment to the motion to make it unlimited. Everybody understand the motion?
Okay. Sedlacek.
No.
Lottie.
Yes.
Fernsler.
No.
Riley.
No.
Fowler.
Yes.
Anderson.
No.
Hanson.
No.
Jarvis.
Motion fails on a 2-6. We're returning to the original motion, which is to adopt the ordinance as read, in particular because we discussed it, limiting the Class B to 4. Discussion on that. Alderman Sedlacek.
I would like to make an amendment to change the number 4 to 6.
Do we have a second? Do we have a second? Motion fails for lack of second. Back to the first motion. Further discussion on the first motion to retain the Class B to 4 as written.
Class A.
Class A.
On page 8?
Class A, licensed quotas.
Oh, I'm sorry. Correct. I apologize.
Mr.
Class
Mayor?
A. Alderman Sedlacek.
Actually, the original motion is to approve as written.
Correct. Right. And that, I'm just
The whole
defining that. The
ordinance.
whole thing as it is, right?
Correct.
With the 4.
Correct.
Any other discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Fowler.
No.
Hanson.
Yes.
Sedlacek.
No.
Fernsler.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Lottie.
No.
Jarvis.
Yes.
Riley.
Yes.
Motion carried 5-3. Ordinance is adopted. Thank you. Moving on, 5 Bravo. Ordinance, an ordinance adopting an amendment to the City of Plymouth Comprehensive Plan. Ordinance number 14. This is the first presentation. This was recommended by the Plan Commission on July 7th, and I would ask Director Jurgis to maybe start the conversation off, and we do have with us tonight, Kevin's in the office. If we have, I did that wrong. If we have questions, we certainly can get into some detail, and we appreciate the work that the extension has done regarding this issue. Director Jurgis, why don't you give us a summary before I ask for a motion?
All of you previously received a draft of the comprehensive plan. I don't know if you brought that with you tonight or if that was in the packets. I think an updated draft was. In the updated draft, pages 33, 97, 98, 111, and 112, those are pages related to the utilities. Those sections were updated by the utilities manager. I just handed out Appendix B. This is a request of the Plan Commission to include this as part of the comprehensive plan as an appendix as it relates to the State Historical Society's architecture and history inventory for properties within the city of Plymouth. So that will be added as in an appendix. The final table of contents will be completed after tonight's meeting, assuming the comp plan is approved. At that time, the table of contents will be updated and final plans will be copied and distributed accordingly. Also part of the agenda packet was a variety of maps which Mr. Emick created for the Plan Commission. Bill's here to answer any questions about that. At the previous Plan Commission meeting earlier this month, there was a public hearing. The public hearing had a few comments, and then the Plan Commission approved a resolution supporting the comprehensive plan as written. That's the only update I have. Mr. Mayor, I don't know if you would prefer that Mr. Emick provide a review of any of the maps.
I think, Bill, why don't you do a quick summary of what the different maps entail and maybe some of the highlights of them.
You don't have your maps with you? Okay, if you do or don't. The first map is basically our extraterritorial boundary, and it's a red line that's 1.5 miles from the city limits. And anything inside that red dashed line, if they do a certified survey or subdivision, is reviewed by the city's planning commission and you. So that's basically pretty clear cut. Map 2 is the existing land uses, and it kind of breaks it down into agricultural and the land uses in the city. When you look at this, when you look to the northwest of Plymouth and to the west of Plymouth, when you see those yellow lots outside the city limits, those are what we refer to as urban sprawl, the 5-acre lot, and as those surround a community, it gets real hard to expand. So, I would encourage us all to just kind of keep an eye on that kind of development in the future. Map number 3 is our existing transportation system, and this is the street functional classification we've agreed to with the Department of Transportation. The traffic counts, these are traffic counts from the Department of Transportation's website. They're from over the last 5 years. We do have some other traffic counts that we've done in-house, like on Pleasant View Road and that I can probably get you when we're looking at the railroad corridors. But it just shows the highways and the major streets in the city and then the other streets. And it also, little dots along the side of the road, you can kind of get an idea of where sidewalks are and where sidewalks are not in the community, because that's part of our transportation. Okay, map 4A is our land plan use. And now this is the nuts and bolts of this this document as far as the maps go, and pertains to the enforcement of this document. And as of, I believe, June 1st of this year or sometime now, our comprehensive plan and our zoning ordinances and our zoning maps have to mesh together. For the last 10 years, we've been able to if something wasn't quite the same as the master plan, we could approve it, Whereas if now, if a development wants to happen, and I will point out, on Pleasant View Road, north of Eastern Avenue, on the right side, north of that environmental corridor, we label that mixed-use residential because we are aware that there is a possibility of those townhouses being built there. So we made it mixed residential up front. If that was the blue planned business and somebody came in and wanted to put in mixed residential, we'd have to amend the comprehensive plan map as well as if the zoning wasn't right. So that's just one place where we kind of tweaked it. But you can see the blue is the business area, and that is mostly north of Kiley Way, along the Highway 23 corridor, and then east of the city. The industrial areas we're looking at is the southeast corner of the community and the south corner where Masters Gallery is. And then out west, we're looking at planned neighborhood. If you look down south of Greystone subdivision, I mean, that seems to be a logical place where development will happen. We all know, well, you may not be aware, but Carms Farms owns a considerable amount of land to the west of the community that they have in conservancy. So the chances of that developing anytime soon isn't real high. And the other part of that is that the sanitary sewer on that side of town isn't right there now. And we all know when you leave town on Summit Street, you're dropping straight downhill and the sewer doesn't flow uphill. So there'll be some work to get that side of the community developed, but ultimately it will. And then, north of Easttown Estates, we kind of plan that as being residential. Around the new Generations building, that's mixed or planned neighborhood. So it isn't a huge change from the last one, I'd say. But we used to have a lot of planned office, and we kind of went away from planned office and went to planned business, which allows offices anyway. If you remember in the old plan, where the Aurora Clinic went and all that area north of Kiley Way was all planned office. And we're still looking for high quality development in those areas because it is a doorway to the community. And then map 4B is the same map, only it's kind of shows our whole extraterritorial district, and basically anything that wasn't on map 4A is agricultural or an existing 5-acre lot. So if that happened to develop outside, we'll have to look at those. Okay, 5A is our planned transportation and community facilities plan. And I'd like to point out that we show Kiley Way going from 57 to 67 and meeting at Rustic Road. That was something that we adopted a few months ago. But I also show an interchange at E and 23 that we petitioned for, whether one of those two is going to happen, unless something else happens. But that's the plan. Some other things that show up on here is a planned reservoir, water reservoir on Summit Street, and then further to the west there's a planned well site, and it shows the location of the new Plymouth Utilities office and the old office with a note that it's going to be moving, and it shows that sometime there could be a fire station on the East Industrial Park. I showed over here on the corner of Willow Road and PP. And other than that, and the other big thing is that we show the railroad Y. So these are all parts of our plan. The rest of the roadways and the road widths were basically from the plan in 2001. So any questions about this one? Okay. And then the last one is more of our bike lane and recreational trail plan. And it shows future roads will have bike lanes painted on them. I'm sure you've all noticed by now that the bike lanes are on Eastern Avenue and Western Avenue and Island Avenue. And we do hope in this plan to build a trail through the utilities property once it moves out. So that's in the plan. Other than that, and then these years is 2011. When I did this, I thought we were going to get these, like the rec trail along Sunset on the north end of town. We bid that stuff, I think 2 weeks ago, and the prices came in really high, that we're going to kind of set it aside and rebid it when we get to the Highland Avenue PP part. So those 2011s, maybe 2012s. But other than that, it's kind of our plan. It's our plan. And this was really taken from the Park Board's outdoor rec plan. So any questions about any of them? That was kind of a quick run through.
And certainly we would want to tell the audience at home listening that if they do have some inquiries, they can certainly check with your office or the clerk's office and obtain more information. At this time, do we have any technical questions that we want Kevin to answer? I don't know if we want to let him off the hook that easy tonight, but we certainly want to thank him for all the work that he has done to help us update our master plan. We meet our requirement here to get this done, and certainly his help was essential to speeding this process along. So thank you very much, Kevin. Want to make a statement? Sure.
If you do approve it, it would have to be conditional on Table 14, page 91 being updated. Those numbers are not the latest numbers, because we wanted to make sure before Bill ran that the maps would be approved. So there's a lot of calculation involved in that, so we just wanted to hold off. So the approval would be conditional on that.
Okay, good. That's a good.
Planned land use map, so any changes to the planned land use map is going to impact that table as well.
Okay, that's a good comment. We appreciate that.
I think the idea is that, if you consider passing it tonight, because, and Crystal can speak to this, is that for the last month, we haven't had a comprehensive plan, because the last one was approved June 12th of 2001, and we were supposed to do it in 10 years, and today is 10 years and 1 month. So, and what that means is that we can't zone stuff. I'm not quite sure what it means, but is it better to get it done now if you don't have any changes, or not?
I would say it is better to get it done now if you don't have any changes. And the comprehensive plan is supposed to be updated every 10 years. The city is sort of at the forefront of those municipalities who are getting around to the updating part of the comprehensive plan. A lot of municipalities have just recently established their comprehensive plans, and so what exactly that means for your zoning code isn't clear, but what is clear is the sooner the better you can get your comprehensive plan updated. I would suggest you do so.
Good, thank you. With that, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the ordinance adopting the amendment to the City of Plymouth Comprehensive Plan, ordinance number 14, with the stipulation of the table on page 14 as indicated.
Table 14.
Table 14 on page 91 as indicated. And I would also ask that we waive the second presentation in that motion to approve the ordinance this evening.
So moved, Alder Jarvis.
Second, Alder Riley.
We have a first and a second to so move and approve. Any discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Riley.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Jarvis.
Yes.
Lottie.
Yes.
Fowler.
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Sedlacek.
Yes.
Bernschler.
Thank you. Thank you again, Kevin. We appreciate it. And Bill, your work involved, and certainly Director Yergis, a lot of work involved in that. Moving on, item 5, Charlie, an ordinance amending Title II, Chapter 1, Section 2-1-8, Wards of the Municipal Code of the City of Plymouth. This is ordinance number 15, the first presentation. I'll ask Clerk Huberty to clarify and summarize for us.
Yes, Mayor, this, it was discovered last week that there was the parcel of land where the Utilities Operations Center is going to be located was not included on the ward map or the district map that was approved 2 weeks ago. So this is just amending the description of Ward 8 to include that parcel of land.
Thank you. Chair will entertain a motion to waive the second presentation and approve the amendment as indicated.
So moved, Alder Anderson.
Second, Alder Jarvis.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item 6, resolutions. A resolution repealing the policy regarding the issuance of Class B liquor licenses established by Resolution number 16 of 2006. This is Resolution number 18. Again, we'll stipulate it's on file in the clerk's office and on the city website. We talked about this previously. The chair will entertain a motion to approve.
So move, Alder Lottie.
Second, Alder Sedlacek.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? Alderman Hanson.
What is this specifically doing then?
Attorney
I
Fever.
can speak to that, Mayor. Currently, you have a resolution in place which basically sets a policy that no bona fide clubs or lodges within the city are eligible to apply for a Class B, which is served on premises, intoxicating liquor license. What this resolution does is it repeals that prior resolution and provides that moving forward, bona fide clubs and lodges which are open to the public may apply and be considered for a Class B intoxicating liquor license.
Any other comments? We have a first and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item 7, we did already. Item 8, approve extraterritorial certified survey map for Clinton Blanque, Branch Road, recommended by the Plan Commission July 7th. This was contingent upon the approval of Chief Nicholas. And Chief, did you have a chance to check that out?
Yes, I went out and looked at the property, and what they did, they ran it around the woods.
Okay, so we're okay with the contingency that the Plan Commission stipulated on it. Fine, thank you. Chair will entertain a motion to approve the extraterritorial CSM as indicated.
So moved, Anderson.
Second, Riley.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item 9, approve extraterritorial certified survey map for William Rank, County Trunk C, recommended by the Plan Commission July 7th. Chair will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved, Alder Sedlacek.
Second, Alder Jarvis.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item 10, approve easement agreement with Masters Gallery Foods Incorporated and Plymouth Utilities. I'll ask Attorney Fever to briefly summarize this for us.
Well, this is an access easement agreement, and if you look at Exhibit B, you can get an idea of where that access easement will be located. It's going to be coming off of County Trunk PP to access an existing sanitary sewer easement. And before I get into some of the terms of the easement agreement, Mayor, I'd ask that the utilities manager maybe give a brief summary of the project and why the easement is necessary.
Thank you.
the Exhibit B, we have a sanitary sewer along the north side of the property, and north of that is the river. Access to the sanitary sewer is very difficult. We try to use the existing corridor that we have for the sanitary sewer off the shortcut road. The terrain is such that we can't reasonably get our maintenance equipment through there to do that. The more logical way is to come in off of County Trunk Highway PP through the Master Gallery Foods property. We've discussed with them using their existing service driveway. Because of the weight of our maintenance equipment, they prefer that we do not do that. They would offer and counter that to give us an ingress-egress easement to allow us to be able to maintain and rehabilitate the sanitary sewer that goes through this corridor.
Thank you.
I have just a few points for the council's information. I think maybe we talked about this the last time an easement came to the council. Previously, not all easements, as a matter of practice, came to the council. Since I've been on board, my preference is for the council to approve easements when they come up, since they are legal documents. That is my preference, and in the future, all easements will continue to be coming to the council for approval. As part of the project, the original project, there was some restoration work that needed to happen along the riverbank. The city of Plymouth agreed to split that cost with Masters as a result of our project. That amount is roughly $12,000, and before that payment would ever be made, the agreement was that there would have to be an access easement approved and granted to the city before that was ever paid to Masters Gallery for that work. So this does go back a little bit, but as a matter of practice, my preference is for the Common Council to approve easements.
Thank you, Director Yurgis.
And
Attorney
Mayor,
Fever?
I would just like to point out a couple of areas of concern related to the easement agreement. As you'll note on page 4, there is the consent of mortgagee, which has been left blank. There are currently some mortgages against the property, and because Wisconsin is a race notice state, those mortgages are going to have, the city's easement is going to be subordinate to those mortgages. What that means is that if there's ever a foreclosure, that the city could lose its easement rights in that foreclosure action. Now, there's nothing to indicate that Masters is going towards foreclosure or that they're having any financial difficulties, but I do just call that to your attention because those have not been filled out, and so that is a risk. As you'll also note on page 6, there is a transmission tower easement that will overlap with the city's access easement. And the easement holder there has indicated that they will not subordinate their rights to the city for that overlapping area. So it's unlikely that the transmission tower is ever going to be moved, but they do have rights to underground facilities to service that tower as well. So for the same reasons, as far as the race notice, that the city's easement rights are going to be subordinate, there is some concern related to that overlapping area. And not to speak for your Director of City Services, but based on my discussion with him, he feels the risk is minimal and so that it would be appropriate to proceed.
Thank you. With that, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the easement.
So moved, Alderman Riley.
Second, Alder Jarvis.
We have a first and a second to approve the easement agreement with Masters Gallery Foods Incorporated and Plymouth Utilities. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item 11, discussion and approval of downtown clinic employee incentive. I'll ask Director Yurgis to give us a quick summary on that.
In your packet, there was a memo I prepared for your consideration. As you know, we are joining the downtown, or the Center for Health and Wellness is the actual name of the clinic. As part of that, our employees will have the opportunity to see a nurse practitioner as well as a physical therapist. By going to the clinic, the rates are at a lower rate than what we would pay if they went directly to another clinic. And as a way to encourage employees to try the Center for Health and Wellness a couple times, there is an employee incentive program, which I'm looking at introducing, which would not exceed $20 per health plan participant, beginning July through the end of December 2012. So for each visit, for the first 2 times, they would receive a gift card. We would be looking at doing some sort of employee survey to rate their experience with the Center for Health and Wellness, to collect that information, and then share that information with the clinic partners as well. That is the summary. Questions? Go ahead.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the Health and Wellness Center incentive program of $20 per family.
Second, Alder Anderson.
The chair will recognize the motion to approve the agreement with Health and Wellness Center.
Just to
Discussion.
clarify, that would be per plan participant, because of some people are in a single plan, so it'll only apply to them.
Good.
If they're in a family
Good
plan,
point.
that would apply to either their visit or one of their dependents.
Good point. Questions? Alderman Hanson.
The incentive money would come from
The health insurance.
health insurance. Okay.
Clerk will call the roll.
Hanson.
Yes.
Jarvis. Sedlacek.
Yes.
Lottie.
Yes.
Fernsler.
Yes.
Riley.
Yes.
Fowler.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Motion carried. Item 12 was deleted item. Item 13, discussion and possible action on funding for railroad quiet zones. Chair will entertain a motion.
Mayor, I would like to make a motion to table this decision at this time.
We have
Oh, I can't do it. Oh, I'm sorry.
Has
I
to be a
can't do
motion to
that.
table. So first of all, it has to be a motion, and then
That's
you
right.
can table the motion.
Oh, okay. So I have to withdraw that. I'm sorry.
We can just do nothing and it has the same effect.
Okay.
Hearing no motion, no action on item 13, and we'll continue that at a later date. Item 14, discussion and possible action on funding for the Plymouth to Kohler Rail Project. Chair will entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Alderman Sedlacek.
I would like to make a motion that, I'll just say that, because it'll go to discussion anyway, the city of Plymouth provide $250,000 for the Plymouth to Kohler Rail Project.
Do we have a second?
Second, Alderman Fowler.
We have a first and a second to provide $250,000 for the Plymouth to Kohler Rail Project. Discussion. Alderman Lottie.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to vote no on this project at the present time, because if it goes into TIF 4, TIF 4 goes into red in 2012. It's in debt. I can't see adding more debt on top of debt. It just doesn't make sense to me. And to go with the revolving loan, if you go to revolving loan, that winds up being a gift. And I just don't see the people of the city of Plymouth or the revolving loan giving more money away, just giving it away, you know. There's got to be a limit to where we go, how much money we can afford to just give away. We gave $750,000 that we're not going to get back. That was a forgivable loan, and I just can't see doing any more. Thank you.
Any other comments? Alderperson Jarvis, yes.
Thank you, Mayor. While I appreciate the larger economic picture of this project, I can't support it at this time because we have given almost close to $4 million in the past year to large economic projects. If we had not done those projects, I would have looked at this much differently. I also think that there are a lot of details that need to be shored up and addressed. So at this time, I'm not in favor of contributing any funds. Thank you.
I would ask Clerk Huberty to into the record the 5 letters that we have distributed this evening. You can do them in any order that you so choose, and
Read all 5.
all
the
5,
letters.
yes, into the record.
The first letter I have
I
is.
make a motion that we district to appeal that request.
You are challenging the chair to read into the record
Well, there's,
letters from local businesses.
if you want to say the names of the 5 local businesses and that they're in favor of it, sure, but it's going to take how long to read 5 letters? Then let's read all the emails that we received that were not in favor over the past several weeks. That's my
This is a first and a second. This is discussion. Any discussion? Clerk will call the roll on the motion to deny reading them into the record.
Anderson.
Yes.
Riley.
Yes.
Lottie.
Yes.
Jarvis.
Yes.
Fowler.
Yes.
Fernsler. Sedlacek. Hanson.
Yes.
Motion is carried. Can we read the names in the record?
Certainly.
That's sufficient
Do we have to take a vote on that?
for the record?
That's fine.
That's okay?
You can make the decision, we can appeal it, but you can make the decision.
I make the decision, we read the names into the record. That's okay? The letters I'm referring are one from Sartori Foods, signed by Jim Sartori in favor of the rail project. Sargento Cheese, signed by Lou Gentine in favor of the project. Plymouth High School, signed by Dr. Clark Reinke in favor of the project. Lakeshore Technical College, signed by Dr. Mike Lancer in favor of the project. And Kettle Lakes Co-op, signed by General Manager Mark Mentic in favor of the project. Any other discussion? Alderman Fernsler.
Do we have to make a decision on this tonight?
I would ask maybe Patrick Drennan to give us a little update on that, and maybe from the Sheboygan County Economic Development Corp. Patrick is the one who is doing the putting the paperwork together, and then I think I would call on Frank Huntington from Department of Transportation to maybe also answer that question. Patrick?
Good evening. Patrick Drynan, Executive Director of the Sheboygan County Economic Development Corporation. Just a brief update as to the status of other private and public contributions towards the 20% local match related to this rail project. As you heard earlier today, Sheboygan County has approved their $100,000 contribution to the project. City of Sheboygan Falls City Council has approved a $250,000 contribution to the project. Kettle Lakes Cooperative, their Board of Directors has approved a $100,000 contribution to the project. And Bemis Manufacturing Company has signed an agreement to contribute $200,000 to the project. That's where those 4 items stand right now. The other portions of the $3 million 20% local match to the project include an $850,000 commitment from Wisconsin Southern Railroad. We do not have any thing in writing related to that commitment yet. However, I understand from Wisconsin and Southern that the Plymouth-Toccola Rail project is considered an active project, and they have entered into a grant agreement with the Wisconsin Department of Transportation to move the project forward. The Sheboygan County T-grant application, the $1 million T-grant application, is anticipated to be submitted to the Wisconsin Department of Transportation on August 1st. And if you add all those dollar figures up, we're at $2.5 million towards a $3 million local match. 2 other companies I spoke with today, Glacier Transit and Storage at $40,000 and Service One Transportation at $20,000, are both reviewing the agreement that Wisconsin Southern has proposed to them to secure their commitments. And I have not yet heard from King Structures and Morel Transfer and Warehouse after leaving a message today. Both of those had previously made a $20,000 verbal preliminary commitment towards the project. In short, to answer the question, no action is not required tonight. However, the longer the decision in terms of securing a 20% local match towards the project is delayed, the potential for delaying the design work and engineering related to the project into fall, winter, or even spring could delay the project. So while the answer is no, I guess it could be delayed a couple weeks and would not jeopardize the project, but a longer delay could.
Thank you. Frank Huntington, Wisconsin Department of Transportation. Why don't you answer that from the DOT side, please?
Sure. This project has been underway, or at least been in the planning processes for several years. I think it was close to 3 years ago that we first received the application for it. It's not a DOT project. The application was submitted by Wisconsin and Southern and supported by the East Wisconsin Counties Rail Consortium. Our program is basically a local assistance type project, so we just provide the funding for it. We've reserved about $12 million in order to fund the project. It was approved about 2 years ago. In December, we met with a group of the interested parties in the area, and I indicated at that point, because the project had basically stalled to some degree and nothing had really been advanced for a year because of the local funding issue, I indicated that we would like to get an answer by the end of June 30th, in order to know whether the project is going to go forward or if the funds can be used for a different project. Now, June 30th has passed, and that was not a hard and fast deadline. Progress is being made. A lot of effort has been made to come up with that local match and answer that question, so we're not pulling the funds. Our funds are still available. But we would encourage you to make a decision fairly soon so that we can know whether the funds are going to be used in Sheboygan County or if we can use them for projects in other parts of the state. Our funding typically is bonding funding, and we paid by the Transportation Fund. The last biennium, we had $60 million for the 2 years, $30 million per year. This year, that funding has been cut in half to $30 million for the 2 year, only $15 million each year. So if anything, that makes that more critical to know whether this project is going to go forward or not. As Patrick indicated, it doesn't have to be made tonight, but we would encourage you to make a decision as quickly as you can, so that we know if we have a project or if the funds are available for other projects around the state.
Thank you. Alderman Fernsler and then Alderman Fowler.
Make a motion, we table this project tonight.
Second, Alder Anderson.
We have a first and a second to table. Discussion?
Mr. Mayor.
Alderman Kozlacek.
Not any discussion on the table.
I stand corrected. Thank you. Clerk will call the roll on tabling.
Fernsler.
Yes.
Riley.
Yes.
Fowler.
No.
Anderson.
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Jarvis.
No.
Sedlacek.
No.
Lottie.
No.
That's a 4-4 for tabling. I will break the tie and say we will not table this. This is too important a decision. We need to move this ahead and get on with planning and have vision and opportunity. Tabling fails. We're back to the original motion. Alderman Fowler.
Well, I have a couple of questions concerning the funding. And what entity estimated that it was a $15 million project? I mean, what if it's $20 million? What if it's $10 million? Where did this number come from?
Frank, can you answer that, please?
The number basically developed by the Wisconsin and Southern Railroad. They submitted the application. Our estimates is that it's probably going to be in the ballpark. We really won't know what the final number is going to be until we go out for bids. Another good estimate is going to be when the engineering work is done and the engineer develops their estimate. So it is just an estimate developed by Wisconsin Southern. We've looked at it, we feel it's pretty close to being in the ballpark. No guarantees, but that's our feeling at this point.
So what if there's cost overrun, as frequently happens with many government projects? Where do the funds come from?
We would have to look at it at that point to see if the funds can be generated. I can't say for sure that we would have additional funds because, as I indicated, our budget is being cut back. The other option is to cut back on the project in a way that would be feasible and worthwhile, while at the same time saving some costs. At this point,
So we could maybe wind up with a rail out to MM and then a rail to nowhere?
well, we would not start the project unless we knew we had the ability to complete it. The first step would be the engineering and cost estimates that way, and then going out for bids. If the bids come in too high, I would expect that we would adjust the project to make it still usable and complete the project. And the other option that's out there, if it comes in too high, is, at this point we're looking at a project all the way from Plymouth to Kohler. There is a possibility that's been discussed of going from Plymouth to Sheboygan Falls at this point and serve the businesses that are currently there, and possibly completing the rest of it at a later date. And that, if the costs come in exceptionally high, that is an option that would be looked at.
Suppose by some miracle the cost comes in under 15 million, how is the excess funds distributed?
There'd be proportional basis. Our funding is an 80% grant, and then there's a 20% match. And if it's under that project, we would still provide 80%, and the 20% would also be used.
Is the question meaning of the money contributed pro rata? If it's 14 million instead of 15 million, all the parties that would put in would pro rata pay less in proportionately?
That's my expectation, yeah. Now, the local match portion, we don't have any involvement with that, so that would be up to the agreement between the parties participating in that, but that would be my expectation.
I would ask for clarification. John, Jerry Holub in the audience, did the county not approve their 100,000 with the not to exceed 100, but the understanding that if it was less, there would be proportionate
That's correct.
credit?
That was correct.
And I would, Mr. Howell, I'm sorry.
The agreement we signed said if it's proportionately less, we get our portion, we get a proportion back that's equal to that.
Attorney, Mayor Meyer, is that your understanding in Falls?
Yes.
Alderman Faller, does that answer your question?
Yes.
Another one?
Yes.
Go ahead.
In an earlier meeting of discussion on this, funding this project, Mr. Yergis indicated there would be possible a 5-year short-term loan at low rate from the state available. Is that true?
That has been a discussion that there is a state loan program that we can borrow money from if we wanted to. I don't know what the rate is right offhand right now, but that is available, as is other funding options such as the state trust fund loan program.
I think that amounts to about $10 per capita or something like that per year or something like that, or per month. I have to figure it out. But I mean, it's the $250,000. If this project is successful, is peanuts to the city. It really is. I think we should approve it.
Alderman Lottie? Or one second. Director Yergis, did you have a?
Well, I just wanted to review the.
Okay, go ahead.
Would now be the appropriate time to review the funding options?
Why don't we, since the question was raised? Let's go ahead.
Yeah.
Since we're on that subject.
A couple of funding options. As we previously discussed, there is the potential to borrow from the revolving loan fund program, either as a direct loan or as a forgivable grant, where the revolving loan fund could contribute those funds to the project. That is one option. Another option is, again, general fund, general obligation debt. That was where we talked about potentially borrowing short-term through the state trust fund. I believe right now the 1-year rate is 1.83%. The 2-year rate is like 2.25 or 2.24, and then it goes up slightly up to I think 3.25% if I remember correctly. Or no, that was the bank loan, the recent bank quote we got from a local bank. The state trust fund loan is at 3.25% direct. I do have a handout just for informational purposes that there should be enough for everyone that I'd like to review with you. Originally, as part of the state budget, there was a part of the state budget that related to debt service prior to July 1 of 2005. And for the city of Plymouth, that debt service relates to the aquatic center or pool debt. If you may recall, 2011 happens to be the final payment of the aquatic center, which is roughly ballpark $300,000. As part of the proposed budget underneath Governor Walker, there was a rule that said if your general obligation debt service before July 1st, 2005, of debt issued before July 1st, 2005, if your debt service is decreasing, you have to reduce the tax levy by that amount. So underneath Governor Walker's law in 2011, the $300,000 is going to the pool. In 2012, underneath Governor Walker's law that he had proposed as part of his budget, we had to decrease our levy by $300,000. In the handout that I just provided you on page, at the bottom of page 1, where it begins with levy limits, and then page 2, where it talks about negative adjustment for reduced debt service on debt issued prior to July 1, 2005. And then underneath that, it says option for avoiding negative adjustment. And that language states the negative adjustment requirement described above does not apply to any municipality that does not carry forward unused levy capacity. So in the case of the city of Plymouth, we will not be carrying unused levy capacity, essentially because the levy is 0%. And in the essence, if our net new construction, let's say, was 0.25%, if we kept it at 0% and didn't carry anything forward, we would still be able to levy that $300,000, which is currently going to the pool payment. Now, I also want to point out for a moment, so everyone understands what the initial plan, and this is something the city's been talking about ever since 2005, is that once that pool payment is made, the $300,000 would be freed up to pay for other capital projects or other capital items. The large sheet, which is a annual CIP request beginning in the year 2012 and going beyond, is what the current departments have requested in the general fund for capital improvement projects. To date, the 2012 requested items are $687,000. In 2011, what our budgeted non-debt finance capital budget was $365,000 in the total capital outlay account that was budgeted for. Now, obviously, $365,000 doesn't cover $688,000 in requests, but I want to point out, at least for this information, or for this council to consider, there is an additional $300,000 that will be available to allocate either toward operations or future capital projects, which also could include funding a portion of the rail project in 2012.
Thank you. Alderman Lottie.
When I look at this, and I understand where Brian's coming from too, but there's streets in the city need repairing. You know, I know there's a lot of rough streets in the city. And Bill Emmett needs new equipment in the city garage to plow snow in the wintertime. Do we pull from our services that supply all the taxpayers in the city of Plymouth to spend money in the TIF 4 district and keep the tax levy. I think if we can lower taxes in the city of Plymouth, you can pull more people into the city. Maybe, as much controversy has been going on with this thing, maybe it's time we put this to a referendum and let the people decide. Do they want to pay higher taxes for the railroad to go to Sheboygan Falls? Maybe that's the way we got to go with this thing.
Alderperson Jarvis.
Thank you, Mayor. I concur with Alder Lottie that we might want to look at a referendum, that if we have the opportunity to potentially lower taxes, that is one of the greatest economic tools we can have by lowering taxes to the people that live in our community. That draws more people in. That's one of the things that companies look at, is what a potential employee looks at, what community they're going to live in. They look at what the taxes are in each community. The other thing that I still want to point out is that I don't think we have the amount of detail related to what Frank's department does in terms of assessing, are there going to be gates required at some of these crossings? And if we know if there's going to be a gate required, then we can make a better decision on how much money we're going to need if we want to put in the quiet zones. So I still think that we need to look at that as well. So I really encourage you to think hard about approving any kind of amount tonight, because it might end up we're going to have to spend the $800,000 that's been estimated for these quiet zones. Thank you, Mayor.
Any other comments? Alderman Kozlacek.
I know that the request from the Sheboygan County Economic Development Group was for $400,000 from the city of Plymouth, and my motion had just $250,000, and I chose that because that's the amount that Sheboygan Falls, the city of Sheboygan Falls approved, and I believe that if the community of Sheboygan Falls can approve that, I believe that the city of Plymouth can approve that as well. I agree that there are a lot of factors that still need to be discussed about what is going to be needed, quiet zones, and all the details that may go into that. But I also believe that a lot of those things, that one, they will work themselves out. Two, we're talking about one train per week at this point in time. I'm sorry, one train going in and one train going out per week, and possibly in the future one a day, two times a day. Trains would be going through, and without quiet zones, they'd be blowing the horns twice a day. This money is here, the $12 million. It's coming from the state. They just decreased by half the amount of money that they're going to allow for projects like this. If this money from the state of Wisconsin goes away, it may never come back. This is an opportunity now to set up the city of Plymouth and Sheboygan County with rail. There has actually been an increase in rail use throughout the United States in the past 15 to 20 years, not a decrease. With the price of gas going up to $4 a gallon, trucks become so much more expensive than rail. I believe that at this point in time, rail is going to become maybe not what it was in the 30s and 40s, but what it was in the 60s and 70s, and the amount of merchandise that was being moved across the country. I believe that we can't sit here and say, right now, we can't raise our taxes because of this. I think that and to a certain extent, we don't know that this would raise our taxes. Yes, it probably would. How much? I don't know. We're talking about $250,000. I know when the school did their $18 million referendum, I think Alderman Fowler was correct at that time it was a $5 or $6 per month on a $150,000 house. So his comment to how much it would be per tax payer it would be a very small amount for a 5-year period, which was probably most likely the way we would finance this. And perhaps not all of the $250 would be part of a loan. Some could come from the revolving loan as well. If we let this go, we could be shutting that opportunity for rail growth and therefore growth in our businesses in Sheboygan County for a long time. And I believe that this is probably less money and more important than the $700,000 that we gave.
Alderman Lottie.
Again, I'm just going to object. You know, when somebody says we're going to get state money, you know, this is all tax money. You know, this money doesn't fall out of the sky. You know, federal money also. We all all scream and holler about our taxes going up by the federal level. Well, if you keep giving these grants away all the time and to cities and communities, then we're all tax dollars, and then we wind up giving it away. You know, I just don't understand that, you know, where you're coming from. I can see the railroad. So if companies want to come, and if you have existing companies down the rail line that want their rail, I think they should put the money up front and do it. And if the railroad really wants it, they should put the money up front to do it. They're the ones that are going to benefit from it right off the start. The minute they start hauling freight, their bottom line goes up. You know, they're the ones benefiting. How does it benefit the taxpayers of the city of Plymouth? And I would maybe make a motion to send it to referendum.
Mr. Mayor.
Is that a motion?
I would make a motion to send it to referendum.
Second, Alder Jarvis.
Question, Attorney Feber.
I think we already have a motion on the
We have a
No,
motion on the floor.
that was voted on already.
the motion to provide the $250,000.
No,
That was
the
voted
motion
on.
is
No,
to
sir.
provide $250,000.
I
The
thought
motion
his
was
vote-
to table it, and that failed, was not voted on.
Okay, all right.
So I think we
We're
need to-
correct.
Yes. So
Continued
there's an
discussion.
existing-
There's an existing motion on the floor. Alderman Fowler.
The motion is to provide the $250,000, but not how we're going to get the funds.
Correct.
That's correct.
So why don't we vote on the motion and figure out if we need it, how we're going to get the funds? at
Well,
another
that's part of the discussion, that's
Mr.
right.
Mayor.
Alderman Szlachek.
A comment to Alderman Lottie about, yes, it is tax money that the state's giving us, $12 million. And if we don't use it, it's going to be used somewhere else.
Could be.
Not could be, it will be used somewhere else. That money, their budget has already been cut by 50%. That would give them a 45% increase in their budget almost double their budget for one of the two next years, and that money would be used. That's how this government works, where monies that are taken in from the people and they are dispersed back out to service the people. And no one agrees on every single service that the government chooses to use the money for. At least I can say they probably don't agree on the amount. Everybody has their opinion as to where the money should go, but this is one that is a part of the transportation plan for the state of Wisconsin, not necessarily this line, but I just know that if your transportation doesn't get better, then things won't economically get better for you.
I would like to make one comment that our roads in the state of Wisconsin are built with DOT funds, taxpayer funds, that trucks go on. And the freight rail is something that DOT buys, builds, benefits all of us, just like roads benefit all of us. And in our industrial park, this goes right through two of our industrial parks. We have over 200 acres available for development, and I feel we need to connect the dots that every year our schools take attendance the third Friday, I believe it is, in September. And that's how our schools get state aid financing, is by attendance. So how are we supposed to get more students in the schools if we don't have families that live in the school district, or families with quality jobs in the community, quality jobs from businesses that invest in our community? And we see that all around us. We've had over $100 million invested in the last 5 years. Our unemployment is very low in the city, right around 4%. County is over 9%. The state's over 9%. Businesses invest in the community because we, as elected officials, have the vision and lead by way of example and making a commitment. I cannot personally believe that in the next 17 years of TIF 4, 19 years of TIF 5, that we will not have one more business, whether it uses rail or not, investing in our TIF district to help pay for this infrastructure that is so-called negative cash flow. Does it cash flow tomorrow morning? The answer is no. But will it cash flow in the next 17 or 19 years? And if we don't have enough vision to understand that that's going to happen, then why are we doing anything? And if you think you have troubles in the school now with low attendance, go ahead and take away some of the manufacturing and industry around you and find out when you don't have jobs to raise a family on. These are important things. You're making decisions for the next 20 or 30 years. And if all we have to do is have a little faith that our community is going to grow, then doggone it, let's do it. Alderman Hanson, you had your hand up.
Okay, this is a tough decision to I've been debating back and forth what direction to go. I mean, is the railroad a good thing? That's what a person has to take a look at. Is the railroad a good thing for the city of Plymouth? The quiet zones, to me, if Plymouth gave $0 to this, okay, and the railroad still went through, we'd have to deal with the quiet zones, or not have quiet zones in the crossings. So to me, the quiet zones is a factor, but if everybody else in the community supplies the money towards the railroad, it goes through, the quiet zones are going to be a factor we're going to have to deal with. So those, it is something to deal with, but, so is the railroad a good thing for Plymouth? Will it be a good thing for Plymouth? And that's what I'm trying to decide. You know, I look at the TID 4, I believe is where Walmart's at, and two other businesses or two other companies went out there, and I may be wrong about what TID it is, but two other entities went out there and built that particular area to help fund that TID doings on it. So I would hope that some other businesses come to the industrial park. And the other statement I have, and I don't have an answer quite yet, that's why I wanted to table this to take a look at it when we got a little more information, maybe about the quiet zones, but they're really not a factor. But the other factor is that where is this money going to come from? That I believe that has to be part of this motion. We can't decide later on, because if we decide $250,000 or whatever the amount would be, where is that money going to come from? And we need to know that, I believe, within this motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Alderman Lottie.
I would just make a comment. I can agree with you. The TIF 4, sometime in the future, over these 17 years, it's going to start to cash flow. But that might be 10 years down the road, or 5 years down the road, maybe 8 years. In the interim, who's paying that? It's in the red. Who's going to pay? It's going to go on the tax roll. We don't even know what that amount's going to be for sure yet, but it's going to go on the tax roll, unless Director Jurgensen knows exactly how much we're going to take. We got two choices. We can put it on the tax roll, levy for it, or we can take it from utility reserve. And you heard tonight our utility gave the audit on utilities. We shouldn't drop that reserve much farther than this, the way he says. Now, you got to decide, like Alderman Hanson said, where are we taking the money from? Are we going to borrow for it and put it on the tax roll? Or are we going to take it from utility reserves or revolving loan? And I think the revolving loan, that's an outright gift.
Number one, you're not putting it on the tax roll until the TID is closed.
Somebody's got to pay it off. Every year you've got to make payments.
No,
don't you?
no.
I'll just clarify it. I mean, when the TIF goes in the red, let's say, basically there's two things that need to be done. We're either going to have to use fund balances to fill that gap, which either comes from the general fund or the utilities. We've already done that with technically TIF 6, where we've had an advancement from the utilities for TIF 6, or the other source is it would go on the tax levy. So that statement is correct, but also the fact that we don't know what the final amount is going to be, because it was just a projection based on 2011, a snapshot in time when those were created. We know that beginning in 2014, technically TIF number 4 goes in the red by roughly $122,000. Over the life of TIF number 5, it would go in the hole as much as $60,000 and end with a positive balance of $180,000. Again, for TIF number 4, currently, that would end with a $600,000 balance in 2025. But between 2014 and 2025, it also is going to have a negative deficit by well over almost $1.7 million. But over the life of the district, we do not have a TIF district that ends with a negative balance at the current time. But over the life of the TIF, we would have to borrow money either from fund balance reserves to finance it on an interim basis, or borrow money for that to fill that gap, which most likely would be the tax levy. But currently, in the end, current TIFs do pay off, but there is interim financing which we'll need. So just to clarify what the correct position of TIF number 4 and TIF number 5 are.
Alderperson Jarvis.
Thank you. Again, I want to bring up that if we're talking about funding sources, I think it's important that we look at where we're going to come up with the money for the quiet zones, if that's something that is in the mix. And we need to decide beforehand that is that part of this project or not. I really think it's a critical part that we should know that before we're deciding on these things. The second thing is that you have to look at this as a cost-benefit analysis. Sure, we can dream about a lot of things we'd like to do for economic development in our community, but when we look at the costs of what we've put in over the last year in 2 major projects with Sargento and Dairy Farmers of America, and supporting a large number of jobs in this community to remain here and for expansion, that when we're looking at the benefits of this project and the costs that we're going to have to possibly put in, it's just not there for me. And I think that in this economic time, we don't go forward on some of these projects. We try to keep our tax levy low, or if we have an opportunity to bring things down, then we should. Thank you.
Alderman Hanson.
I'm going to move to refer this to the committee of the whole to the next meeting. Maybe get some more factors on it. So that's my motion.
I would call a point of order that we've already turned down tabling it.
That's a totally different entity.
That's why I'm asking.
There's still a motion on the 250.
Right, you can move that to committee of the whole. And that can be done that way.
So we need a second to move it to the committee of the whole.
I'll second that.
We have a first second to move this question to the committee of the whole for the July 26th meeting. Clerk will call the roll.
There could be discussion on the,
Can we have discussion on it?
if you wanted, why you wanted to put it to a committee or not, if somebody wanted to do that.
Okay, discussion. Clerk will call the roll.
Lottie.
Yes.
Sedlacek.
No.
Jarvis.
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Fowler.
No.
Riley.
Yes.
Fernsler.
Yes.
Question is moved to the committee of the whole for July 26th. Thank you all. Moving on. Item 15, approved 2011-12 Class B combination alcohol license application as indicated, previously approved by the chief. Chair will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved, Alderman Riley.
Second, Alder Anderson.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item 16, approved order please. Item 16, approved 2011-12 tavern operator licenses as indicated, previously approved by the chief. Chair will entertain a motion to approve.
Second, Alder Riley.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item 17, approved treasurer's report and authorized payment of June vouchers. I'll ask Clerk Huberty to read the treasurer's report, please.
For the month of June, the City of Plymouth balance on May 31st was a negative $25,886.64, which is due to a sweep account transfers not completed at the end of the month with the bank. Receipts were $991,179.90. Disbursements, $1,027,166.31, bringing us to a balance on June 30th of a negative $61,873.05. I guess I'd like to always clarify the checking account and the sweep. This is just the checking account. The sweep account is not included in here. That's how our accountant does it. Just, we're not really in the hole. So. For the Plymouth Utilities, the balance on May 31st was $77.34. Receipts, $2,778,364.55. Disbursements, $2,778,387.59, bringing them to a balance on June 30th of $54.30.
Thank you. The Chair will entertain a motion to approve the treasurer's report and authorize payment of June vouchers.
So moved.
Second, Alder Hanson.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? Clerk will call the roll, please.
Jarvis?
Yes.
Fowler?
Yes.
Lottie?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
Riley?
Yes.
Sedlacek?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Fernsler?
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you. Item 18, accept 2010 audit report of Plymouth Utilities. Chair will entertain a motion to accept the audit report of the Plymouth Utilities for 2010.
So move, Alder Lottie.
Second, Alder Anderson.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item 19, 19A, building permit report for June 2011. 57 permits issued with an estimated total of $5,798,669.75. Item B, June reports acknowledged for filing clerks, Department of Public Works, Fire Department, and the Police Department. Item C, minutes acknowledged for filing, Downtown Revitalization Committee, June 2nd, Public Works and Utility, June 14th and June 28th, Finance and Personnel, June 28th, Plan Commission, July 7th. Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn. We have a first and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?